Now, Nigerians held 5.19 trillion naira outside of the banking system as at May 2026, highlighting the continued dominance of cash transactions despite years of investment in digital payments, infrastructure, and financial inclusion initiatives. The latest money and credit figures released by the Central Bank of Nigeria showed that the currency outside banks rose to 5.19 trillion naira in May, representing an increase of 2.15% within 1 month. Our Rise business analyst Chika Mbonu joins me now to discuss this further. Good morning, Mr. Chika. Very well, thank you.
Let me just briefly make comment on the
please.
Dangote SEC thing.
Yes, let's start with that.
It speaks on market integrity. And that's why SEC is very, very worried. I mean, we are all happy that this is happening to one of our own, the largest refinery in Africa that wants to go to the market. I'm told that up to about $5 billion of it is going to come to the market. But like a lot of things, a lot of people are trying to beat the gun, and for SEC, that's not proper. Because the stock market, rests on trust and integrity. And if that's is breached, there's going to be a problem. Of course, I must tell you that with the kind of work that we do, this is one that has exactly the most interest from all over the Africa. Yeah. Everywhere. I just came back from Ghana, and it's when is it happening? Has it happened? Indeed, some people thought it happened. Then from diaspora, a lot of people have called me to ask me for counsel on the process. And I've told them you're going to get a stockbroker in Nigeria and so on and so forth. So it's exciting, but we should be very careful. People are trying to profit from the excitement, which is wrong. Yeah. People are trying to ask people to pay money in advance, early. Is also fraudulent. It's not right. I'm using very strong words, and then creating artificial demand or for the shares also, and that, and maybe something like that to get the market advantage. So SEC has done the right thing. SEC's major responsibility to make sure the market is there's integrity in the market, trust is maintained, and so there is a fair process for everybody, fair price and also fair price discovery, so you don't have ballooned price or primary and secondary price, as the case may be, and create artificial scarcity for the shares. So this is the right thing that SEC has done.
In spite of all the excitement, things should be done by the book and with transparency, also not to undermine the integrity of the capital market. Well, let's also...
Let me talk about the cash.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
It's a very, very, very good story that's very interesting in the sense that despite everything about cashless banking, Nigeria trust cash more than the banking. And
you talk about this a lot.
The banking system. But sometimes we forget the journey that we have traveled. The evolution of digital banking in Nigeria has been one of the major salutary developments that the banking industry must be commended for. But it seems it's not enough. Because this 5 trillion that you mentioned, it means that there's money sitting in homes, in shops, offices, safes, and vehicles. You can use yourself as an example. I'm sure in your house you may have 2 or 3 or 4, 5 million in cash there, So
I'm not going to comment.
You can imagine that 5 trillion divided by 200 million people is about 22,000 naira per person. That tells you how huge it is. But I said, so I've been on a journey. The movement from even the success were recorded, though now they're telling us that there's still more to do. I remember one time that we needed to convince our brothers in the East, where I come from, that your 5 million, a lot of them need to come from the East to come to Lagos area to come and do their shopping. And before, they used to carry all the money in cash and bags and Ghana and put in the buses. Now, what used to happen those days was that there used to be a lot of luxury bus armed robbery attacks, especially in the night, but a lot of people used to do night journeys. But with the coming on stream of digital banking, that's sort of petted away. You never saw armed robbers attacking luxury buses again, because when they attack now, there's no cash now in the but it wasn't easy. I remember my brothers in the East time, when they used to come for the trip, they would carry their money physically and hold it cash, and they didn't want to see it. But after some time, we said, that's your cash. See it in this small card. He said, are you sure that this is my card? Are you sure it's going to work? So it was a major, change management from that era to this era, and it tells us again that why is this happening?
Yeah. Why
people still believe in cash? The memory of the 2023 cash scarcity still fresh in a lot of people's mind. Remember, that time, many Nigerians had not forgotten the queue for days for cash. ATMs were empty. Businesses could not sell. Hospitals rejected transfers. Fuel stations wanted cash. So a lot of people still believe that, never again. We can't be caught, flat again. So many traders now and individuals intentionally keep a lot of cash, in reserves. And again, the other thing now is Nigerians don't fully trust the banking system. Sadly, despite all the good effort of the banks to make things happen. So people are asking, what if the network fails? What if the transfer hangs? What if the bank app crashes? Instead of taking a risk, they simply keep cash. I mean, it's happened to me several times. You go to a hotel in my travels, and you want to check out, and you flash your card, and they try it once. It doesn't happen, And then, of course, the Nigerian problem, poor network and electricity, is a major thing. Imagine a trader in Aba, imagine a village in Benue, filling station on the highway, POS says no network. What will happen after they put fuel in your car? What are you going to do? So transfer fails, generator is off. What's going to happen? So people still carry cash. Only cash works. So businesses continue demanding cash. And of course, the informal economy in Nigeria is very large. You may not understand it, but a lot of the informal economy is very large. Roadside mechanics, food sellers, market traders, artisans, they don't have POS. But I must commend the banks. Indeed, as I'm talking about this story, if you go to a lot of markets now, a lot of women actually bring out the POS. But see, many still operate mainly on cash. And then fear of taxes. I must say that. Some businesses believe that if every payment enters my bank account, government may ask questions. And so they prefer cash. Not always because they are doing anything illegal, but sometimes because of the issue of that. And then the one I've talked about to banks are banking charges. People are saying that, there are transfer fees, SMS charges, maintenance, POS. As some people ask, if I already have cash, why pay charges to use it? So that's why this is up. And of course, the most latent one, the most one happening now is the kidnapping and cyber fraud. And then some people avoid banks because of the fear cybercrime. A lot of people have told us that their money just disappeared, from the banking system. Others fear exposing their financial information, lest they are marked, so they keep cash physically. And then the culture, from the side, a lot of people, like, I want to see the cash, that's the cash, you want to feel it. So they like seeing burdens of cash psychologically. Cash made them feel
a lot safer.
Yeah, a lot safer, yeah. So those are the things. What I think government can do to make things change is not by legislation. The issue is trust. People must, so if I'm going to Port Harcourt or Abuja, I don't have to carry cash to pay my hotel bills because I know that if I flash my card, it will work when I'm taking out from the hotel. That trust must be won. And then and the point that this is very negative for the economy. If 5 trillion of money is outside the banking system in cash, it means that the banks cannot unlend it.
That's true. That's true.
Yes.
Very interesting. I knew a few of the reasons, but this is quite a catalogue of very valid reasons that you've presented. So, of course, there's still that risk aversion and lack of trust. Let's look next at private sector credit rising 81.04 trillion naira in May.
Why is this a story? It's because Nigeria currently has one of the highest interest rate environments in years. So what happens is that when high interest rates should actually mean that fewer people borrow. That's what it means. Because even the CBN monetary policy, whenever they move the rate up, is to dissuade people from borrowing so that there's less liquidity in the system. So banks become more cautious and businesses postpone expansion. That's when interest rates are high. But yet, lending increase. And that's the story in this story, How could it have happened? The fact that interest rates are high, but people are still, borrowing, Because, I ask myself, why did, credit rise? The issue is that some businesses must simply borrow. You can't stop it. A food manufacturer must buy wheat every day. Filling station must buy petrol. So no matter the interest rate, they actually need money. Hospital must buy drugs. Business must continue. Then inflation is continuing, making a lot of companies to borrow. For example, if your business was requiring 1 million naira before they do their business to buy a particular sort of raw materials, now because of inflation, they require 2 million naira. So you can imagine that's why they have no choice but to ask for that. And then of course, remember they came up from recapitalization also. The banks are flush with cash. And so are they going to eat the cash? They must look for credible borrowers to give her the money, and find conditions to lend. So that has also contributed. And then some sectors are still expanding, despite the issues we have in the economy. Sectors are still expanding, so they require money. And so at the same time, while manufacturers are complaining that credit is reducing, we're here saying that credit is also increasing overall. But it may not be reaching all the sectors. So this is an important distinction that even though credit is expanding, not all the sectors are profiting. So the SMEs are still complaining that are left out in this growth. Remember yesterday that we talked about the treasury bills, and we said that remember the subscription was at 1 point. Government came to 1.2 trillion, and the subscription was about 1.4 trillion. Oversubscribed. And why? Because the interest rate was about 18%. And we said that banks would prefer to lend to the government at 18% than lending to companies at 20% to 21% and then struggling to collect their money back. So they park their money, so interest rates have not completely killed lending. Many analysts expected that to collapse, but it didn't happen. And so that's another message from here. And the economy has not frozen. That's another message from here. Businesses are still operating despite the challenges we have in the country. So
because, like you mentioned, they don't have a choice. They have no choice. It's almost as though take what you can get.
You have to borrow. Really? But the challenge is this. Like I asked some people I was training last week. I said, "What business can you do with 35% interest? What business can you do with 40% interest?" Which is the effective rate sometimes that the SMEs borrow. What are you going to do with the money? So, but the journey must continue. You can't put the car in reverse.
Absolutely.
So we're hoping that as things get better, Iran-Iraq war moderates, other costs will come down, and then the economy will moderate for everybody.
That's a very important point. I think we've covered everything. Highly insightful, Mr. Chika, today. And we drew some links from the conversation from yesterday as well. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Chika. We'll see you again tomorrow. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.